Welcome to the Revolution Church podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome to Revolution. Glad you could make it out. Got a couple new faces here. That's nice. Lots of good stuff happening. If you're listening online, you probably know that. Caleb is killing it online. He's my, accountability partner to keep me. Bugs me every day, and I love it. I guess I'd like to start out with I would like to be able to raise enough money, and I don't talk about raising money a lot, but I'd love to raise enough money to help Caleb be part of the staff. I'd like to have him, and he's working a couple different jobs and doesn't have a car right now, and he's one of the reasons we're doing so much online. So thank you, Caleb. And thank you to whoever rich donor is listening right now. Thank you ahead of time. Patron, whatever patron is out there ready to write the $1 million check. So it is really tough to preach every week when you're going through a huge theological shift, and I am going through a huge theological shift right now. And we'll get into that more as we study more of that stuff. Today's not really about that theological shift. Today we're going to get more back into the basics of faith and what we're doing and what we should be doing. The church is failing, including ours. What? And what I mean by that is basically children being in cages, children being forced to take care of one another at the border, not having enough diapers and medication, kids sitting in cars and buses for 36 hours is unacceptable. Literally kids in concentration camps. What the, WTF, folks. Really. And the problem we have is we're all scapegoating one another for this. I've gotten back on Twitter because I'm trying to do more on social media. And I read a lot about Twitter, and I see a lot of my social justice friends. And we blame Trump. But in a way, for me, that's scapegoating. Because there's a lot we can do. I think someone like Shane Claiborne did something interesting as he reached out to Franklin Graham and said, you guys do all this stuff for kids overseas and put these care boxes together. Why don't we work together and do something for these kids and these families at the borders? I even reached out to my father and was, because we don't have the budget to, I don't know what to do. We don't have the budget to fly out there and get stuff together and do all that. So I said, Dad, what do we do, And he didn't have a whole lot of answers, but he said the church can help, but there's so many people coming through, because he's got that mindset, the conservative mindset that justifies, there's just thousands of people coming through the borders, and so we just don't have enough, resources. But it's like, yeah, we do. Look at all we've done overseas. But this thing is, to me, is this should bring people together, not just on Twitter, because it's just like Twitter is not enough. Instagram is not enough. Putting pictures up is not enough. Digital, what is it? What do they call it? Digital is it? I can't remember the word I'm looking for. But protesting digitally does not do enough. We need feet on ground. You know, we need to be contacting companies that have diapers and medication, and we need to be getting trucks out there to help these children. Now, it is what I've heard getting a little better, but the fact is this should be bringing all people together. You know, this should not just have us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and things like that, but we should be marching on the streets. I mean, we march on the streets for a lot of things. But for some reason, this is somehow not our problem, and if we just say something about it, then we can let it go. You know? And right now, 7 of us in this room marching down the street probably wouldn't make a huge impact. But if we worked with maybe the UCC, maybe went to John Piper's church, got some of those folks, and what I'm trying to say is that, you know, all the faiths together, this should be something that's interfaith. Not just dialogue, but interfaith outrage. But not just for the interfaith, but the nons as well. That's what a lot of people call themselves now are nons. You know, like saying, you know, we don't want anything to do with faith. We don't want anything to do with progressive faith. We don't want to, you know, stop talking to us about it. But they're passionate about people. Humanists, passionate about people. Atheists. Why are atheists so angry at Christianity? Because they feel like, or especially Christianity, but other faiths, because they feel like it hurts people. They want to help people. The one thing we can agree on is let's not let people hurt. And I think the one thing we all can really agree on is let's not let children suffer or be tortured. Now, this is happening all over the world. It's just not in America. This is happening to individual children all over the country because of poverty and things like that. These are issues that need to be looked at. You know, this is beyond theology. This is beyond faith. You know, this is... But right now, because I'm a pastor and we're in church, we're going to talk about it from a faith standpoint. So, this is in front of our faces. This is a humanitarian crisis. What do we do? WTF. It's so funny, I'm not using curse words now because usually we have kids in service. And the parents always say, thank you. Because I cuss like a sailor sometimes, I'm not going to lie. But, and the ironic thing is conservatives are good at working with the poor. One of the churches that Revolution started out was Phoenix First Assembly, as Assemblies of God. Anybody familiar with the Assemblies of God in here? I grew up Assemblies of God and had to get saved every week because you could lose your salvation. It was like trying to grasp onto sand for really dumb things. They were very horrible and really hurt me and mentally bruised me in a lot of ways. But one of the things they were really good at was outreach, especially Phoenix First Assembly. They were good at outreach with people and reaching people who needed and had needs. And they were great at it, you know. And that's why I liked when Shane reached out to someone like Franklin Graham, who we all probably can't stand, but was like, hey, I'll work with you. I'll cross the line. You know, there's neither male nor female nor Jew nor Gentile nor slave, nor free, nor Republican, nor Democrat, nor liberal, nor conservative. We're all one. Right? Now imagine the impact of just working together just to help other people. The relationships that we would build through that. The conversations that would come out of that. The friendships that would come out of that. The unity. You know, you might end up having coffee with someone after that. And sitting down and talking and saying, this is where we differ. Why? Just like most of us are Christians because we were raised in the United States, some people are conservatives because they were raised in a certain area and in a certain way, because they have different life experiences than ours. So we share our experience, strength, and hope. I learned that in an anonymous group that I attend every now and then. For alcoholics, but I won't tell you what it's called. Now, the motive sometimes for some people who work with the poor is because they want to have their treasures up in heaven and things like that. But I think ultimately what we don't want is we just don't want to see people suffer, and we really don't want to see children suffer. And I just feel powerless, man. I feel wrecked over this. Because I have two little ones. I have a 3-year-old who's about to be 4 and a 2-year-old. And they love each other, but I couldn't imagine making them take care of each other and having them pulled away from me. That would be a nightmare. I have 50-50 custody with my wife, you know, and it's like, and she's a great mother. So I don't have to worry when those, you know, I'm actually more worried when they're with me than when they are with her. She's a great mom. But it would be a nightmare. It would be my worst fear. I couldn't cope. And for some reason we think because people are the other, because they come from a different country, that somehow their suffering is different than ours. It's not. It's suffering. And if Christians are called to anything, is to call and help people end suffering, or at least share in their suffering, and to help carry one another's burdens. This is the basic Christianity 101. And we're failing at it. You know? There's reasons why I don't go on Twitter and tweet about this stuff. Is because, you know what? That's not changing things for me. It's actually just making me sadder and making me angry to just be like, talk is cheap sometimes. And I'm a speaker, you know? I mean, I'm a motivator. I try to motivate people to do things. But it's really tough being powerless and seeing little children suffer. We just have no excuses. And it would be great to just say, oh, this is all Donald Trump's fault. But, you know, yeah, I mean, Obama wasn't much, I mean, he wasn't separating parents from kids, but he wasn't much better at how he treated the other as far as people at the border. You know, he had probably more people. What is it when they take you out of the country? He had probably, you know, he had people deported. They called him the Great Deporter or something like that. Like he didn't have a very good record on that. We're looking for saviors in these people and these presidents and these we think somehow the politicians, and we all know politicians are screwed up, and somehow we think, but then all of a sudden we're like, it's like we have like this dialectic mind that thinks, but they'll solve it. We'll find the right savior to solve it, when it's us. It's like saying, well, God will take care of it. My parents, when I was raised, had an idea that somehow God was going to magically take care of my education. I dropped out, got my GED, never went to college, decided to become a pastor, and now most of my friends have doctorates and that I hang out with. I don't have a doctorate because my parents thought God was going to magically take care of things. And it's this magical thinking. I've been reading a lot of Caputo, and Caputo says the good news is shock. And the shock is this: God dare not be God. Takes the extreme risk. And nothing could be more extreme than leaving beings and existence in our hands. Basically saying, I'll read this part. The burden of existence is on our shoulders, where everything that is done in and under the name of God takes place. Saying, we are the hands of God. When people see God, they see that's what we do. We are the kingdom of God. God is not magically coming down here and doing something. It's up to us. That's why radical theology is important to me. If it's saying God, free me of God, is saying, let me get out of this magical thinking. This supernatural thinking that's going to be like, part of that, going through my divorce, part of that magical thinking that I had growing up, that I had thought I'd let go of, I kept expecting God to show up in the middle of my divorce, but what helped me mostly was my therapy and the really good friends. It was other people. So we've got to realize that. It's up to us. May God free me of God. Who was it that said that? It was Eckhart Tolle who said that. That was his prayer. He was a mystic. And now this type of situation makes me kind of understand what he meant. I've always really been like, what does God free me of God mean? And theologically, and let me read about it. You know what I mean? But then when the rubber hits the road, it's going like, this kind of supernatural thinking that we all think is going to just happen. What did Jesus say? Just a few simple notes of what Jesus said about children. Jesus said to his disciples, occasions for stumbling are bound to come, but woe to anyone